Michael Turner appeared to be an ordinary father, the type who followed the same routine every morning without fail. Yet behind that calm exterior was a moment of distraction that would turn an ordinary day into an unthinkable tragedy. He stepped out of the house just after sunrise, carrying his travel mug and keys like he did every morning. The neighborhood still felt sleepy, with only a few curtains drawn and the distant hum of lawn sprinklers starting up. He moved with a sense of routine, the kind that comes from repeating the same steps day after day. His daughter sat in the back seat of the car, strapped in securely. She held a small toy in her hand, something she never went anywhere without. Nothing about the scene appeared unusual or alarming. The calm beginning of the day masked the fact that a single decision was about to change everything. He started the engine and backed out slowly. To anyone watching, it looked like he was heading toward the daycare as always. His neighbors had seen this sight countless times and thought nothing of it. Instead of driving across town, he looped back and parked in his own driveway. The car stood there with the windows rolled up tightly, trapping the still morning air inside. The sun wasn't harsh yet, so the car remained quiet and unthreatening. Without a second thought, he walked inside, closing the front door behind him. No one saw him hesitate. No one saw him look back. To a passerby, it looked like a man returning home after dropping his child off, like any responsible parent would. Inside the car, the silence continued. There was no alarm, no loud sound to signal danger. The world outside moved normally, birds hopping across lawns and delivery trucks passing slowly through the street. The daughter was too young to understand time, too small to unlatch the seatbelt. Everything around her remained perfectly still. It was the kind of quiet that didn't feel dangerous until it was too late. Meanwhile, inside the house, the father relaxed as though his day had begun smoothly. There was no rush, no visible stress, and no sense that anything had been forgotten. The door clicked shut, separating him completely from the mistake he had just made. The house remained cool, the air-conditioned rooms almost peaceful compared to the rising heat outside. From that moment on, two different realities unfolded just meters apart, one filled with calm distraction, the other slowly turning into a silent emergency. The contrast between them remained hidden from everyone, setting the stage for a tragedy no one saw coming. Inside the quiet house, he placed his mug on the table and powered on his laptop. The screen lit up, casting a pale glow across the room. The curtains were half drawn, allowing just enough sunlight to form thin stripes on the floor. He scrolled through a few tabs, pretending to start his workday, but his attention drifted quickly. Instead of opening work files or checking emails, he allowed himself to slip into a different world entirely, one built around instant gratification and thoughtless escape. The house around him was silent, cut off from the responsibilities that waited just outside. Minutes passed, then more. He adjusted his headphones and leaned closer to the screen, absorbed in content far removed from reality. Notifications buzzed on his phone, but he ignored them, brushing aside any thought that tried to pull him back. The digital world demanded nothing from him except attention, and he gave it freely. With each click, he sank deeper into that distraction, unaware of the consequences growing by the second. He didn't glance toward the window, didn't feel the heat beginning to rise outside, didn't remember the weight of the responsibility sitting in the driveway. The car remained parked, unmoving as the sun climbed higher. The temperature inside slowly increased, turning the interior into a sealed chamber of rising heat. But from the quiet corner of the living room, none of that seemed real. The father moved only to adjust his chair or turn up the volume, choosing to stay disconnected from anything that might demand action or care. The more he indulged, the more distance he created between himself and the truth outside. His mind justified the moment by assuming everything was as it should be. He believed the routine had been completed, that nothing required his attention right then. It was a dangerous kind of confidence, the kind that comes from repetition without awareness. Time became difficult to measure, slipping by unnoticed while he remained glued to the glowing screen. The house stayed cool and comfortable, a stark contrast to the intensifying conditions inside the vehicle. The barrier between the two worlds was just a wall and a closed door, yet it felt like an entire universe apart. Without a single sound to alarm him, he stayed there, fully absorbed, unaware that every passing second was turning a simple morning into a disaster waiting to surface. Outside, the sun steadily gained strength, heating the metal roof of the car and turning the interior into a confined space with rising temperatures. The vehicle sat in the driveway, motionless and ignored, blending into the calm suburban scenery. Neighbors walked their dogs, unaware of the danger contained just a few steps away. The street was quiet, and the stillness offered no warning. From a distance, it looked like any parked car under the late morning sun. Nothing appeared wrong. No alarm sounded, no movement drew attention, and the world around continued in peaceful ignorance. Inside the house, the father remained absorbed in his online distraction, unaware of how quickly the situation outside was worsening. The glow of the screen filled his vision, cutting him off from any sense of responsibility. He closed one tab only to open another, allowing time to dissolve without notice. The cool air of the room created a comfortable barrier from reality, making it even easier to remain detached. The digital content he consumed demanded focus, pulling him deeper into a state where consequences felt distant and unreal. The line between neglect and disaster had already been crossed, but he had not yet realized it. Meanwhile, inside the parked car, the conditions changed dramatically. Heat built up rapidly, turning the space into a trap with no escape. The glass windows trapped sunlight, allowing it to intensify with every passing minute. The outside world, filled with normal sounds and everyday life, was close enough to see, but too far to help. Yet everything remained silent. No one walking past could see through the tinted glass clearly. To them, it was just another vehicle in a driveway, giving no sign of the hidden emergency inside. The contrast between environments became more severe inside the house, calm and distraction. Outside, a growing crisis. The distance between safety and danger was only a few meters, but it felt like two separate realities moving in opposite directions. The father, still unaware, continued to give his full attention to a world on a screen, while the real world outside moved steadily toward irreversible consequences. Time, which could have saved everything, slipped away unnoticed. Each passing second made the situation more severe, yet nothing seemed out of place to anyone nearby. The silence of the scene offered no hint of the tragedy that was slowly unfolding just beyond the closed front door. Hours later, when the sun had reached its highest point, the atmosphere in the neighborhood shifted from calm to uneasy without a clear reason. The quiet that once felt peaceful began to feel heavy, as if something was wrong, but no one could see why. It was at this moment that the father finally removed his headphones and stretched, unaware of how much time had passed. He glanced at the clock casually, expecting to continue his day without interruption. Then a small thought crossed his mind, not loud enough to alarm him at first. His routine felt incomplete, but he couldn't immediately understand why. He stood up slowly, a faint sense of confusion building inside him. He walked toward the window without urgency, still half distracted by the artificial world he had been consumed by. When he saw his car still in the driveway, he froze. The image didn't register as abnormal for the first second. Then awareness struck like a sudden drop in temperature. The car, the one he believed he had already driven away earlier, stood exactly where he had parked it that morning. The silence that had once felt normal now seemed unbearable. His mind raced, searching for a logical explanation that wasn't possible. The truth pushed itself forward, crashing against his attempt to deny it. He moved toward the door, but his steps felt slow, heavy, as if the air around him had thickened. The quiet suburban street remained unaware of the shift taking place in his mind. He reached the driveway, and everything around him appeared too bright to still. The world did not match the chaos forming inside him. The car looked ordinary from the outside, unchanged, as if nothing had happened. But the stillness of the scene felt wrong in a way he could no longer ignore. He placed his hand on the door, and the heat radiating from the surface confirmed the reality he had tried not to face. In that moment, time no longer moved in seconds, but in slow, crushing realization. The peaceful morning had transformed into a scene marked by consequences that could no longer be undone. What had begun as a routine day was now a moment frozen in shock, the weight of neglect settling in with full force. The neighborhood, still unaware, continued its quiet rhythm, while in that driveway, a single moment of awareness marked the beginning of an irreversible reckoning. The aftermath unfolded quickly, yet it felt strangely slow, as if the world paused to take in what had happened. Emergency vehicles arrived, their presence breaking the ordinary calm of the street. The flashing lights reflected off nearby windows, drawing neighbors out of their homes in confusion. People whispered among themselves, unsure of the details but sensing the severity of the situation. The driveway, once just part of a peaceful neighborhood scene, had become the center of a devastating incident. The father stood there, surrounded by noise and movement, yet his surroundings felt distant and blurry. His earlier certainty and distraction were gone, replaced by a heavy silence inside his own mind. Investigation teams moved methodically, documenting everything with practiced precision. They examined the timeline, checking phone activity, internet history, and the exact moment the car had been parked. Each discovery built a clearer picture of what had taken place. The browser records revealed hours of prolonged online activity, exposing the level of distraction that had allowed the situation to occur unnoticed. What had once been private and hidden was now laid bare, transformed into evidence that spoke louder than any explanation he could give. The calm appearance of the house no longer matched the image of a responsible routine, but instead represented a place where a tragic oversight had been concealed by a screen. News of the incident quickly spread beyond the neighborhood. Reports framed it as a shocking example of negligence, focusing on how easily something so preventable had spiraled into irreversible loss. The father, once viewed as ordinary and unremarkable, became a figure connected to a story that sparked outrage and disbelief. Discussions online and in communities grew intense, questioning how a moment of distraction could lead to such extreme consequences. It was no longer just a local tragedy, but a cautionary tale circulating widely, warning about the dangers hidden behind everyday habits. The house remained standing, unchanged on the outside, but it no longer blended into the surroundings the way it once had. The driveway that had seen quiet mornings now held the memory of a moment that could never be undone. The event became a lasting reminder that danger does not always arrive with loud warnings. Sometimes it hides in silence, disguised as routine, waiting for a single lapse in attention to reveal itself. The story left behind a heavy truth. In a world filled with distractions, a few unnoticed hours can change everything forever.